Anastasia had turned 4 years old in April, and Emily was nearly 24. She had her boyfriend and was bringing him to the barn every now and then to spend time with Anastasia. Sure, her boyfriend hadn't been around horses much, but he thought Anastasia was a beauty. Emily brought her boyfriend to the barn one day so he can meet the horses along with her aunt and uncle. Anastasia was grazing in the pasture with another mare who happened to be a thoroughbred and was most likely wanting to be alone. Anastasia didn't mind that one bit. When Emily brought her boyfriend over to the pasture gate, she called for Anastasia, and the paint horse galloped towards the gate with excitement. Like a dog, Anastasia always came to her owner whenever her name was called. As smart as she was, Emily introduced her boyfriend to her horse, Anastasia. "Adam, this is Anastasia, my horse," Emily said, getting a lead rope so she could take Anastasia inside the barn to tack up. Emily was planning to ride Anastasia to show off her horse to her boyfriend, and so her boyfriend got the chance to pet the horse once the lead rope clicked on. "She's beautiful, Em. You sure raised a well-behaved horse," Adam commented, stroking the horse's face and muzzle. "Adam isn't so bad. Just hope Emily makes sure he behaves himself." Anastasia's mind was wandering about what the person Adam would be, seeing that Adam was all new to her. Anastasia was inside the barn, where Emily groomed and tacked up. Sure, Adam helped a little, but Emily did most of the work. Once Emily took Anastasia to the indoor arena, she safety checked all the tack before getting on Anastasia. Once Emily was on the saddle and was ready to warm up Anastasia, the first off-property show was coming up in the next month, so Emily was for sure going to compete with Anastasia to make sure her first show of the year the best. Adam watched as Emily did some warm-up and then with Anastasia around the arena. Her uncle came in and he coached her on jumping part so Emily would be able to compete with her. The mare went over the jumps as if she was flying. A very smart horse Anastasia was and knew what to do. Emily had the confidence to jump on Anastasia and wasn't hesitant one bit, to which it made Adam impressed with her. In the month of April was training hard into flat and ride, and as well as jumping for Anastasia. But Emily wanted her to be ready for her first property off show. When May 6th rolled in, it was the first horse show of the year, and it was a Sunday, so Emily's aunt and uncle and her boyfriend and even her friends came along to watch the show that went on an off-property show that was only an hour from Burkeville. And next we have is number 023, rider Emily Miller and her horse Anastasia, the announcer said onto the speaker. Anastasia didn't mind the speaker sounds, so Emily got her to trot up towards the judges before stopping to salute them. As soon as the signal went on and was told to go, Anastasia picked up the canter while Emily was on control. Anastasia flew over the jumps without knocking a rail or a jump down, which was surprising as Emily was expecting Anastasia to do something while jumping. Anastasia went through the entire course without any refusals or faults, to which it was surprising for Emily. Everyone clapped as Anastasia was proud of herself for making her and Emily very proud. By the end of the horse show, Emily and Anastasia both won second place at the show, and everyone was proud of Anastasia and Emily. Anastasia got a nice long rest after they got back from the barn from the show, and Anastasia's ribbon was placed on the front of her stall door for decoration. Anastasia was happy that she won, but also glad that she did not let Emily down. Letting her down was the last thing she needed to do, especially since she worked really hard with Emily in training. All that training really helped. In hopes of luck, she managed to win something at the show. Anastasia wished that she could do more shows with Emily again, and Emily knew for a fact that there would be more shows to do off property, so Anastasia will get the opportunity to do more. The rest of the year went well with Anastasia, doing shows outside of barn property, and Emily was proud of herself and Anastasia for all the trophies, ribbons they won, and from doing off-show properties. However, in the next few years, a change was coming, but no one would knew about it until a few years later, when that change becomes reality. As a few years went by, Anastasia was 7 years old, and Emily was married to Adam and was working on training a few more horses at the barn with her aunt and uncle by her side. However, Paul and Amy gave Emily the barn and horses, so Emily was now the official owner of the barn along with Adam. The barn was starting to run out of room since some more horses were staying at the barn, and there was barely any room for any more horses. 2 horses had to be sold to a new home. However, more and more horses kept coming. Emily had to make a tough choice, and that was to sell Anastasia. Sure, she didn't want to sell her since she was her first horse, but she felt like she had no choice. Anastasia overheard Paul and Emily talking about selling Anastasia, and what she heard was that Anastasia would be heading to another barn that was a riding school. It was only about 45 minutes away. Anastasia was heartbroken when she heard about the news of being sold. She really loved being at the barn and born in the barn she was raised in, but she didn't really want to be away from Emily. But Emily had to make a choice, so she sold Anastasia to another riding stable, to which the owner was coming to the barn from in Burkeville to pick her up. The day arrived and it was July, and Anastasia was being sold to her new home. She was nervous and wondered what would have happened to her in her new home, since she didn't know any horses. Was it going to be new to her? The owner picked up Anastasia, and Emily took her towards the trailer, but not without giving one last hug and goodbye. "Be safe, Anastasia. Hope someday you can come home," Emily said, as she was having tears in her eyes. Now Anastasia knew it was goodbye for now, but she had heard Emily cry before. The mare was emotional at this, and she wanted to stay with Emily, but she couldn't as she had to go to her new home. Emily led Anastasia to the trailer and secured her on the inside of the trailer, then gave one last kiss on the muzzle before heading out of the trailer. Once the new owner got in their truck attached to the trailer, she took off with Anastasia at the barn. The ride to the new place felt like forever, but all Anastasia could think about was Emily throughout the entire ride to her new home. After 45 minutes of the ride, Anastasia was taken out of the trailer by her new owner and looked around the place. There was a bigger pasture and even a bigger barn in front of her. Anastasia hadn't seen anything like it before, so her new owner led her inside the barn and inside their new stall. However, when the stall she was in was bigger than the one she originally had, but the horses she was neighbors happened to be an Arabian gelding. Now Anastasia didn't mind gelding at all, but since she was a stranger to him, she was only shy to introduce herself. Anastasia was in the stall when she got her grain to eat, and then laid down on her stall to rest. She was sad that she wasn't with Emily, but hoped that someday she would find her way back to Emily. The gelding beside her stall was Rusty. He had been sold to the barn a week before Anastasia came to the riding stable. "My owner died in the car accident. It was caused by a drunk driver. I miss her. She took very good care of me, even did shows with me. I wish she was still around to visit me even," Rusty said. "I miss my owner, Emily. She was very kind to me ever since I was a foal. Me and Emily were really close," Anastasia replied to Rusty as she was served for grain and hay by the people that were working around the stables. "You and your owner had a close bond together. The same could be said for me and my owner. She was only 17 when she died. I was her first horse when she was 10. She was 10, and now I'm 20 years old. And man, she's got me. I was only 13 when I became her first horse," Rusty said as Anastasia was eating her grain. "Who was she?" Anastasia asked, wanting to know who Rusty's owner originally was. "Her name was Mackenzie. She was a sweet girl, always giving me hugs and pats before bed," Rusty replied. Then he continued to eat his dinner. Anastasia decided not to question him much, since she was thinking that already questioned him enough. While Rusty's stall was on the right side, her left side was a quarter horse mare who was eating her hay away. Anastasia managed to get the mare to her left's attention, and this got the quarter horse mare to look up. She was a lot older than Anastasia and Rusty. She wasn't sure how old the mare was, but she estimated to be around 23 or 24 years old. "Excuse me, do you know what this barn does here?" Anastasia asked, unsure of what her new home was about to offer. The older mare looked at Anastasia. She was sweet and walked over to her. "It's called Springland Riding Stables. We get ridden here and even do shows as well," the other mare said. She introduced herself as Shah. "Are the people here nice? They seem to given us our grain," Anastasia stated. "They're pretty chill. However, there are a few barn brats here. One of them abuses horses with crops or whips," Shai said. "Emily would never hurt me while I was being ridden by her. I wonder who does that?" Anastasia questioned. "She comes every summer to ride, from June to September, since she's staying with her father in the summer," Shai answered. "She isn't very nice, and she only hits horses with whips a lot if you don't do what she wants you to do," Shai answered. "If you want to stay on the barn brat's good side, you gotta do what she says." "What's her name?" Anastasia asked, questioning the mare. "I don't know. All I know is that when I came here a month ago, and I never seen her, but the other horses have. But the owner is very chill with her. I guess she ain't dumb to know that she hurts horses," Shai explained. "How I know this is 'cause horses told me stories. They even have whip marks as scars. She won't be riding me if I see her hurting someone else. I was picked on by colts as a young filly. However, when I got to my yearling years, I finally stood up for myself." Anastasia replied, explaining how she could take beatings from horses, but not from a human being. The next day was a riding day, and that's when the owner of Springland took Anastasia out of her stall. The owner was nice and the things that Emily would do while tacking up. The bit that Anastasia was getting used to the new bit. However, she couldn't complain about it. It was like the bit she used to when Emily used bridles on her. Anastasia had to put up with the bit to make the best of it, and listen to commands by leg and voice just to get her to listen to her owner. The flat ride she did, it was just like how the owner wanted. She even did jumping on her how her new owner wanted. Anastasia was very well behaved when the owner rode her, and when she ran Anastasia for the last 2 weeks straight, just to see how she did. However, the third week was a nightmare for Anastasia. The barn brat that walked into the room and the owner to ride Anastasia. As Anastasia was in cross eyes, she overheard the conversation between the owner and the barn brat. The barn brat was a Mexican girl who looked to be about 14 years old, and she had used some threats towards the owner. Anastasia didn't want to know what those threats were, but they sure didn't sound good at all. "If I can't ride Anastasia, then I'll have to buy her myself," the girl said angrily. This got the owner to give in. All right, you can ride her, but you have to be careful with her," the owner replied. "That's what I thought," the girl said. Then she started to get Anastasia ready for the ride. The girl's name was Haley, and ever since she was a barn brat, she must be the same person who abuses horses with using whips to hurt them whenever they didn't listen to her. This made Anastasia nervous, but she would have to put up with it. Anastasia was tacked up by Haley and took her to ride to the indoor arena. Once she got on her horse, she started to do walking, to which Anastasia obeyed her command. It was only 10 minutes later when Anastasia was asked to trot. However, she needed to use the bathroom, so she couldn't do both at the same time. Haley tried kicking, but Anastasia did not budge. Haley then resorted to whipping Anastasia hard. The moment that whip made contact with Anastasia made her freak her out. The mare reared up in the air, to which she never did that when Emily rode her. Haley tried to stay on Anastasia, only to have fallen off from being reared off. Anastasia bolted, bucked in fear, and this made Haley angrily, as Anastasia, she wasn't supposed to do that. But since Haley was hurting her with a whip, Anastasia knew that she couldn't trust Haley and the barn brat. The owner rushed out to see what happened and headed for Anastasia just to calm her down. Once the mare had calmed down, the owner saw that Anastasia had been spooked due to Haley using the riding whip at her. This made the owner angry, and she had banned Haley from ever riding at her barn again. Anastasia was checked over by the vet shortly after Haley left. The vet said that Anastasia's whip injury wasn't serious or life-threatening, and that nothing serious happened to Anastasia. So the owner was good to hear the great news. With Anastasia now developed a fear of whips, she wished that she was still with Emily, and who was always calm with her whenever she was scared or spooked by something. It was later revealed to the owner that Anastasia wasn't the only one being abused by other horses. They were being whipped by Haley, who rode abused with the crop from her. Oh, I wish I was back with Emily, Anastasia said sadly, wishing she was home with Emily, who wished she had never sold her. The next few days came and went. However, Anastasia still felt that she could no longer stay in Springland. She had to get out of that barn. She knew that escaping the barn would be impossible since the stalls were locked up at night, so she would have to think of a way to escape the barn. Whenever Anastasia had a nightmare, it was always Haley abusing her, to which it gave Anastasia thoughts on Haley coming back to hurt her more than she already did. That night was a warm summer night. The owner put Anastasia in the pasture, to which she was alone in the pasture that night. Now, the owner trusted Anastasia that she wouldn't be harmed at night, but little did the owner know was that Anastasia's plans were to run away from the barn.